I finally saved enough to buy my dream home, but my boyfriend demanded his name on the mortgage. Now he's moving out, and I don't know what to do. I can't believe I'm in this situation. I, 26M, have spent years working my ass off, saving every penny, and finally, I've reached a point where I can start looking for my dream home. This has been a huge personal goal of mine, something I've visualized and worked toward with so much dedication. I should be over the moon, right? But ever since I brought it up, my boyfriend, 23M, has been off. At first, it was little comments, playful, almost joking, like, "So, I guess my name's going on that mortgage, right?" I laughed it off because, well, we've been together for 2 years, and I thought he was just teasing. But then he started bringing it up more. And more. And now? It's not a joke anymore. He's serious. He genuinely thinks he should be on the mortgage, despite the fact that he hasn't saved a dime for it. Not a cent. I've tried to explain, so many times, that this is something I've worked toward for years, long before we even met. I told him I'm not comfortable putting him on the mortgage when I've been the one doing all the saving, all the planning. And honestly, we're only 2 years into this relationship. It's still early. But he doesn't seem to get it. Instead, he's acting like this is some kind of betrayal, like I'm shutting him out of something he's entitled to. Every time we talk about it, he gets this look, disappointed, frustrated, like I'm being selfish for wanting to keep this milestone mine. Now it feels like he's constantly bringing it up, making little digs, asking if I see a future with him at all if I won't add his name. And it's putting me in this weird place because I do see a future with him, but does that mean I have to risk something I've worked so hard for? I just want him to be happy for me, to celebrate this huge step in my life, but instead, I feel like I'm being pressured into something that doesn't sit right with me. And honestly, it's starting to make me question everything. Am I being unreasonable for wanting to keep the mortgage in just my name? Or is this a sign of something bigger? Update 1. Things have been getting weird, and I honestly don't know how to feel about it. After I brought up my concerns with my boyfriend, I expected some tension, but I didn't think it would drag out like this. I sat him down and tried to explain everything again. I told him that buying a house has been my dream for years, something I've worked toward long before we even met. I wanted him to understand that I wasn't trying to shut him out, but I needed to protect my investment, especially since we haven't been together that long. I thought this would finally clear things up, but instead, it felt like I hit a nerve. He just sat there, staring at me like I had said something completely out of line, and after a long pause, he hit me with, "So you don't trust me?" That threw me off. I wasn't expecting him to take it there. Trust isn't even the issue here, or at least it wasn't from my side. I tried to explain that it's not about trust, it's about fairness. I've saved for years and poured so much effort into reaching this point, and it's not something I can just hand over. He didn't seem to get it though. He kept circling back to the idea that couples should support each other, and if we're planning a future together, then why does it matter whose name is on the mortgage? It felt like he was twisting it into a relationship issue when to me, it's just common sense. I asked him if he would be willing to contribute financially once we moved in, like splitting bills and maintenance costs, and his response made me pause. He said, "Of course, but that's not the same. This is a long-term investment, and I should be part of it." I don't know why, but the way he said it made me uncomfortable. It didn't feel like he was excited for us to have a home together, it felt like he was angling for something more. And now I can't stop overanalyzing everything. Is he with me because he loves me, or because he sees this house as a way to secure his own future? Since that conversation, things haven't been the same. He's been distant, not outright mad, but different. Whenever I bring up house stuff, he just gives short responses and acts like he doesn't care anymore. It's really messing with my head because this was supposed to be an exciting time for me, but instead, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells trying not to upset him. It's like the more I talk about it, the more he shuts down, and honestly, it's making me second-guess everything. The other day, I caught him looking up rental prices in our area on his phone. When I asked him about it, he shrugged and said he was just curious, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was testing the waters for something. It made me wonder if he's considering moving out if I don't give in and put him on the mortgage. I haven't brought it up yet because I'm scared of where that conversation could lead. On top of all that, some of our mutual friends have started making little comments about our new house, which makes me think he's been talking to them about it. One of them even joked, "You guys are basically married already, what's the big deal?" And I had to awkwardly smile and change the subject. I don't know if I'm overthinking it, but it feels like he's trying to get everyone on his side to pressure me into something I'm not comfortable with. What's really bothering me is that I want to share this milestone with him, but I also feel like I need to protect myself. It's a weird place to be in because I never thought I'd have to choose between my financial security and my relationship, but here we are. The more I think about it, the more I wonder if this is a red flag I should be paying closer attention to. I keep telling myself that if the roles were reversed, I wouldn't even consider asking to be put on the mortgage without contributing. I'd support him and be proud of his achievement, not make it about myself. That's what makes this whole situation sting even more. I'm starting to feel like I'm the bad guy for wanting to keep things fair, and I hate that it's making me doubt my own decisions. I've been trying to find ways to compromise, like offering to set up a rental-style agreement where he can contribute a fair amount each month toward living expenses without actually being tied to the house, but when I brought it up, he looked offended. He said it made him feel like a tenant instead of my partner. I get that, but at the same time, I feel like it's the most logical solution that protects both of us. He didn't argue much after that, but he's been acting colder ever since. It's like every time I try to find a middle ground, it's never enough for him. I've even considered suggesting we wait a bit longer before moving in together, but I know that will just open up a whole new can of worms. He's already making me feel guilty about not including him in the decision, so delaying it would probably make him feel even more left out. I honestly don't know what to do anymore because every option seems to lead to an argument or more tension. At this point, I feel like I need to make a decision that protects me first, no matter how much I love him. It's hard because I know he's not a bad guy, and I know he cares about me, but something about the way he's handling this is making me uneasy. I'm starting to realize that maybe we're not on the same page when it comes to financial boundaries, and that's a scary thing to think about for the future. I feel like I'm constantly battling between my heart and my head, and it's exhausting. I just want to be excited about buying my first house without feeling like I'm ruining my relationship in the process. Every time I try to imagine what things will be like once I actually buy the place, I can't help but worry that this issue will always be hanging over us. Will he ever fully accept that the house isn't ours in the way he wants it to be? Or is this just the beginning of bigger financial disagreements? The more I sit with it, the more I realize that I might have to set some serious boundaries moving forward, even if it means risking our relationship. I love him, but I also love the idea of having a stable future that I built for myself. If he can't understand that, maybe we're not as compatible as I thought. For now, I'm trying to take things one step at a time. I've stopped bringing up house stuff around him, at least until I can figure out how I really feel about everything. I need to know if his reaction is something I can work through with him or if it's a sign that we want different things in life. Either way, I know I need to protect what I've worked so hard for, even if it's uncomfortable. I'm starting to think this isn't just about the house anymore. Update 2. Things have escalated in ways I didn't expect, and honestly, I feel like I'm seeing my relationship in a completely different light now. Since my last update, I've been trying to avoid the house topic with my boyfriend to keep the peace, but it's like he's been waiting for me to cave. The tension in our apartment is thick, and every little thing feels like it's leading back to the conversation we've been avoiding. A few days ago, I was looking at some new listings on my laptop when he walked in and casually asked if I had changed my mind yet. I told him I hadn't, and that's when things took a turn. He sighed, rolled his eyes, and said, "So what, am I just supposed to live there as a guest?" I told him that's not how I see it, but I need to protect my investment, and I want us to find a way that works for both of us. He just scoffed and said, "It's clear you don't see me as part of your future." That hit hard. It's not true, but I didn't know how to make him see that without feeling like I was giving in to something I'm not comfortable with. I tried to explain that I'm not shutting him out, I'm just being cautious because we're still relatively early in our relationship, and anything could happen. That didn't sit well with him at all. He went quiet for a while, then came back with a solution. He suggested that instead of putting his name on the mortgage now, I could add him later once we've proven our relationship is solid. He even brought up the idea of a joint savings account so he could start contributing and show that he's committed. But here's the thing, he still hasn't saved anything up until now. The idea of suddenly setting up a shared financial situation when he hasn't shown much responsibility with his own savings made me uneasy. I asked him why he hadn't been saving if he was so eager to be part of this, and he got defensive, saying he didn't think it was necessary because he assumed we'd just do it together. That set off a whole new argument. It made me realize that we have completely different financial mindsets, and I'm starting to wonder if that's going to be a bigger problem down the road. I've been busting my ass to reach this goal while he's been coasting, expecting things to just work out. It's frustrating because I want to share a future with him, but I also don't want to feel like I'm the only one making responsible decisions. The worst part? I found out he's been talking to his mom about it, and now she's involved. I only know because she sent me a long text about how relationships are about trust and compromise and how it's normal for couples to share big milestones. She even went as far as to say that if I really cared about him, I wouldn't hesitate to make him feel secure in our future. That made my blood boil. First of all, I never even spoke to her about this, so he must have made it sound like I'm pushing him out of the picture. Second, I'm not against compromise, but not when it means putting myself at risk financially. When I confronted him about it, he said he just needed advice from someone who understands relationships better, and that stung. It feels like he's trying to guilt-trip me into making a decision I'm not comfortable with, and the more people he involves, the more pressure I feel. I told him I didn't appreciate him bringing his family into it, and he apologized, but I can tell he doesn't really see the issue. Lately, I've been asking myself if this is just the first of many compromises he'll expect from me. If we can't agree on something as big as this, how are we supposed to handle other major life decisions? Marriage, kids, retirement planning, it's all connected. I've realized I need to set some really firm boundaries now, or I'll end up regretting it later. One thing that really opened my eyes was talking to a close friend who's been through a rough breakup over finances. She told me that ignoring these red flags early on is what led to years of resentment, and I'm starting to see what she means. The love is there, but the alignment on our goals? Not so much. For now, I've decided that I'm moving forward with my house plans on my own. If he wants to move in and contribute fairly, great. But I'm done entertaining the idea of putting his name on something he hasn't earned. When I told him this, he looked hurt, but he didn't argue. Instead, he just said, "I guess I'll have to figure out what that means for us." I don't know where we stand right now, but I do know one thing. I'm not compromising my financial future for the sake of keeping him happy. If he can't understand that, then maybe we're not as solid as I thought. Update 3. I never thought it would come to this, but here we are. After weeks of tension, awkward silences, and feeling like I was walking on eggshells, I finally made the decision I'd been avoiding for too long. I bought the house. In my name. No compromises. No debates. Just me, Taking the step I've worked so hard for. When I told my boyfriend, his reaction wasn't explosive like I thought it might be. He just sat there for a moment, then asked, "So that's it? You're really doing this without me?" I told him as calmly as I could that I had to do what was right for me, and that my offer still stood. He could move in, we'd figure out a fair way to split living expenses, and nothing had to change between us unless he wanted it to. He didn't say much. He just nodded, muttered something about needing time to think, and left the room. That was 2 days ago. Since then, things have been different. There's no more arguing, but there's also no more excitement, no more when we talk about the future. It's like I drew a line in the sand and he's still deciding whether he wants to step over it or walk away entirely. A part of me thought that once the house was secured and things settled, he'd come around. I imagined us celebrating, picking out furniture together, making plans for the future. But instead, he's distant. And the more I sit with it, the more I realize that maybe he was never as excited about us having a home together. Maybe he was more interested in the security that came with it. The other day, I overheard him on the phone with a friend. He didn't realize I was home, and I heard him say, "I don't know, man. It just feels like she's planning for life without me." That hurt, because that's not what I'm doing at all. But at the same time, I can't be expected to gamble my financial future just to prove my commitment, right? Then came the bombshell. He sat me down last night and said he thinks we need some space to figure things out. He told me he feels like I'm making all these big decisions without him, and that he's not sure if he fits into the life I'm building. I reminded him that I wanted him to be part of it, but I needed to be smart about it. He just sighed and said, "It's not about the house. It's about what it represents." That hit me. Because deep down, I think I always knew this wasn't just about a house. It's about how we see our future, how we approach responsibilities, and how we value security. I thought love would be enough to bridge that gap, but it turns out, love isn't always the problem. It's everything else that gets in the way. So, we're taking a break. Not officially breaking up, but stepping back to figure things out separately. He's staying with a friend for now, and I'm moving into my house alone. It feels surreal. A part of me is devastated, but another part feels relieved? Like I finally stood my ground and made the choice I needed to make, without guilt or pressure. Looking back, I realize how much of myself I was willing to compromise just to keep the peace. And now that I've stopped bending over backward to accommodate someone else's expectations, I feel a strange sense of clarity. I don't regret my decision. I worked too hard for this to let it become something I resent. Maybe this break will help us figure things out. Maybe it won't. But what I do know is that I have a future I can count on, one that I built, one that's mine, and one that no one can take away from me. And for now, that's enough.